Today, I want to introduce you the by John Smith on the Y-DNA of the lost tribe of Israel. And everybody has an opinion, a different agenda. Um, I would say just take it as example what he thinks. Who is John Smith? Is a biblical chronology has since the advent of the scientific revolution generally, and particularly since the publication of On the Origin of Species in November 1859, falling into disrepute. This is no small part because the Bible tells of a human race that is much younger than evolutionary chronology requires. It is a matter of great irony, therefore, that in November 1859, a work has published on the seemingly unrelated topic of the prime numbers, which contained a hypothesis, the Riemann hypothesis, whose truth implies that the time frames of evolutionary chronology are inflated. When we take account of this inflation, some puzzling conflict between genealogy and genetics, such as the apparent descent from multiple recent patriarchs of men belonging by birthright to the Jewish priestly class, the descent from multiple recent patriarchs of Jewish men generally. More significantly, light can be cast on genetic divide between Ashkenazi and Sephardic Jews and on the identity and locations of the lost tribe of Israel. So this is the introduction of John Smith, and I want to go with part one: Y-Chronosomes, Y-chromosomal Levi and Aharon. And Levi DNA there is a Judaism in distinction between a Cohen, a priest, and Levite. A Cohen is a descendant of Aaron and the task of Levi, and a Levite is a descendant of Levi, but not necessarily a descendant of Aaron. Behar et al. Found in 2003 that both Ashkenazi Eastern European and Sephardic Iberian Kohanim tend overwhelmingly to belong to haplogroup J, but that's the majority of Ashkenazi Levite belong of haplogroup R1A. A significant number of Sephardi Levite belongs to haplogroup T. So Ashkenazi has R1A, and Sephardic has a haplogroup T. But if all of these men descend from the one man, then how can one group of Kohanim or Levites possibly have a different types of Y-DNA than another? And how, given that all Kohanim are Levites, can Kohanim have a different male heritage than Levites? Question. Note that one cannot become a Cohen or a Levite except by birth. The only available answer giving typical assumptions about Y-DNA mutations rates is that no more than one of these lineage can be truly that of Levite and or Aharon, and therefore that a certain point in history non-Levites and non-Kohanim much both have assumed this role or being appointed to it, and have subsequently have founded false bloodlines. Behar, for instance, takes the high percentage of R1A Ashkenazi Levites to show that these lines have a recent and European foundation. The same general problem arises in regard to the multiple haplogroups to which Jewish men belong. If all Jewish men and Arabic men are the sons of Abraham, then why are there so many different kinds of Jewish and Arabic Y-DNA? Abraham lived recently enough about 4,000 years ago that the Y-DNA all of his male descendants should belong to the same haplogroup. Again, the obvious answer is that Jewishness has no genetic basis. Judaism is, as the saying goes, a religion, not a race, and that men from a wide variety of ethnic origins have often converted to Judaism and founded non-Abrahamic bloodlines. Behar's 2003 result is seemingly contradicted by a study in 2013 by Luthi, Behar et al. A mutation not widely found among Eastern Europeans, M582, was present. In all sampled R1A Ashkenazi Levites, as well as in 33.8% of other R1A Ashkenazi Jewish male and 5.9% of 303 R1A Near Eastern males, where it shows considerably higher diversity, leading the author to conclude that this marker most likely originates in the pre-diasporic Hebrews in the Near East, but the basic problem of multiple Levitical lineages remains. A problem with Behar's 2003 stance as far as Kohanim Levites are concerned is how seriously these traditions are taken by those of the Jewish faith. Whilst it is quite possible to convert to Judaism without being in any way a biological child of Abraham, it is unthinkable in the context of Judaism that these laws could be played by someone lacking the appropriate patrilineal descent, and in some cases oral and written records have been scrupulously kept for centuries to ensure the integrity of the inheritance. Okay, now I want to go with the Samaritans. The Samaritans, Kohanim, claims that they are the descendants of the northern Israelites who survived the destruction of the kingdom of Israel by the Assyrians in 722 BCE, a claim that is backed up by Shen et al. By 2004. And it is backed up by Oefner et al. 2013. So the estimation of genetic distances between the Samaritans and 7 Jewish and 3 non-Jewish populations from Israel, as well as populations from Africa, Pakistan, Turkey, and Europe, revealed that the Samaritans were closely related to Kohanim. This result supports the position of the Samaritans that they are descendants from the tribes of Israel dating to before the Assyrian exile in 722 to 720 BCE. Moreover, we speculate that the Samaritans' M304 Y-Chronosome lineages present a subgroup of the original Jewish Kohanim priesthood that did not go into exile when the Assyrian conquered the northern kingdom of Israel in 721 BC, but married Assyrian and female exiles relocated from other conquered lands, which was a typical Assyrian policy to obliterate national identities. This is in line with biblical text that emphasizes a common heritage of Jews and Samaritans, but also record the negative attitude of Jews toward the Samaritans because of their association with people that were not Jewish. So the Samaritans are typically is a half-breed of Israelite and non-Jews. Their records lineage of high priest, the longest Cohen lineage in the world, has supposedly been held by 132 priests in the last 34 centuries and dates back to Aaron through his son Eleazar and his son Phinehas. Okay, this is the names. Number 1, Sashai ben Abishua, who was a contemporary and rival of the Jewish high priest Eli of Shiloh. Number 2, Baki ben Abishua, probably identical to the Jewish high priest Buki. Number 3, Shembet ben Nadab ben Uzziah ben Sashai, who served at the shrine to God at Shechem alone. Number 4, Shalom ben Shembet. Number 5, Hezekiah 1 ben Pediael ben Shembet. Number 6, Jonathan 1 ben Abiathar. 2 Samuel chapter 15 verse 27, served as a messenger during the Absalom's rebellion. 2 Samuel 15 verse 36 and chapter 17 verse 17. Number 7, Jair ben Jonathan. Number 8, Dariah 1 ben Hezekiah. And it goes to 124, priest line, Amram ben Isaac ben Amram ben Shalma. Number 125, Asher ben Matzliach ben Phinehas. 126, Phinehas ben Matzliach ben Phinehas. Number 127, Yaakov ben Ezi ben Yaakov ben Aharon. And 128, Yosef ben Abhisda ben Yaakov ben Aharon. He was alive, birth in 1919 to died in 1998. And 130, Sharon ben Amram ben Isaac, Saum Ishak al-Samiri, 1922 to 2004. And 131, Eleazar ben Sedaka ben Isaac, 1927 to 2010. And 132, Aharon ben Abshista ben Yaakov, and I believe he's still alive. Although the unbroken genealogy is questionable, the Samaritans themselves admit that the last Samaritan high priest of the line of Eleazar, son of Aaron, died in 1624 without a male successor, and the descendant of Aaron's other son, Ithamar, took over the office, but nonetheless the office itself may go back at least as far as the Hellenistic period. Josephus says in the Antiquities of the Jews that it is derived from Zadokite high priest of Jerusalem from around the time of Alexander the Great. Zadok was a high priest said in 1 Chronicle chapter 6 verse 4 to 8 to be descendant from Eleazar the son of Aaron, who supported King David during the revolt of his son Absalom and helped establish the kingship of Solomon. So that most of results are taken through the FTDNA. The first thing to notice when looking at the 4 members FTDNA Israelite Samaritans DNA project is that the haplotype don't match. So FTDNA has a list of the tribe of Ephraim, Levi, and Manasseh in the Samaritan sect. So Samaritan sect is still do recognize the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, sons of Joseph, and the Levite. In particular, the Kohanim Y-DNA tribe of Levi belongs to a different haplogroup E to that of the Y-DNA of the members of the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, which is J. But Ephraim and Manasseh were the sons of Joseph, who was the brother of Levi. Hence they shared a common paternal ancestor in Jacob, who was born circa 1653 BC, while the MRCA of E and J lived tens of thousands of years ago. The connection of Samaritans to the ancient northern Israelite makes their DNA a worthy object of study. But nonetheless, the FTDNA result seems to contradict the genealogy. So FTDNA, family tree DNA, contradict the genealogy of the result of the Samaritans. And here is why. In Ashkenazi Levi test case, so the example of the multiple Kohanim and the Levitical haplogroups and the multiple Jewish haplogroups present us with a classic conflict between genetics and genealogy. Genealogy says one thing: the Kohanim and Levite descended from Aaron and from the Levite, and the Jewish men from Abraham. But genetics says, or rather appears to say otherwise. This conflict is widespread, and for a more particular example, we can consider the descendant of Yehuda Leib of Shopra, 1725 to 1811. He was alive, more commonly known as the Shopra Zayde, using rabbinical book, tombstone, inscription, immigration and naturalization record, U.S. consensus, birth, marriage, and death records, social media, and other genealogical sources. Researchers Paul and Briskman, 2017, traced Shopra Zayda's descendants through 12 generations to produce a family tree comprising over 2,500 of his descendants. So they find another possible descendant of Michael Zayde, who descended from an independent line, and reasoned that the Y-DNA pair Michael matched must be the true DNA signature of Shopra Zayda. It turned out that Michael matched David and Israel, and so the question was decided. But in deciding that David and Israel are not Aaron and Miron and Uri, descended from Shopora, Zayde, Paul, and Briskman, were arguably required to accept some unnatural consensus. Aaron Joseph and Miron Zayde's common ancestor was Shemuel Zayde. So it looks to be, in order to accept their thesis, we have to accept that two men from independent patrilineal lines sacrificed their familial identities to take on the Zayde surname. Now this is quite possible, if not particularly probable, but in any case, the argument employed is circular if the possibility that the Zayde lines represented by Aaron and Michael and Uri are fact authentic exist. However, in the light of the fact that Aaron, Joseph, and Myron, I don't want to go with this, just giving you the prime. I even don't think this is a descendant of King David. Everybody have their own record, so I don't agree with where they come up with all this information, but so I should collect, just because this was an importance for me. So I'm going to continue with the another subject.